Okay, hello everybody. It's Dr. Young, Dr. Heike Young, your team building and leadership coach. As always, it's a pleasure to bring you these weekly Thursday tidbits. And I'm just going to assume that you can hear me and that you can see my slide. If not, just go ahead and send me a little SOS in the chat box. So let's get started. This week's Thursday tidbit is part 4 out of 6. How to create changes in your clinic without generating conflict, attracting bad attitudes, or feeling disrespected. Today we'll talk about handling objections. So just to summarize, up to now we've talked about the setup and the delivery, and then taking action. In the setup, the most important thing to remember is to have clarity. Know in your own head what you want to change, why you want to change it, how this change will affect everybody, what their part in the change is, when you want to implement it, and so on. Remember, your goal is to be as clear as possible so that you can answer any questions confidently and avoid any unfulfilled expectations from your team. In the delivery, the most important aspect was the invitation. How will you tell your team about the changes so they want to listen and be a part of it? And also what's in it for them. And that all goes back to personalities, which I always touch on. Then last week, we talked about taking action and knowing what your responsibilities are and what their responsibilities are, and also what not to do. I talked about change being like making soup and you being the chef. So today, I'll talk about the objections you will most likely encounter. For instance, be prepared for objections or excuses like, I keep forgetting to do blah, blah, blah. I didn't think that was my job. That's not in my job description. I thought you meant such and such. Wait, what? I don't remember that. But she said, all of these are just objections you might hear from your team. There's a whole other set of objections you might hear from your clinic owner. Like, hey, that sounds like a great idea, but I don't think we should do that right now. I won't touch on that aspect of the objections today because that's a lot more involved. We'll do that sometime in the future. So back to your team and all those objections. And the best one, the easiest one to deal with is, I don't want to. And I'll explain that in a little bit. So here's what you need to know. What are they really saying? Whenever you hear an excuse, they are actually saying one of two things. And one of them being, I don't understand. Like, I don't exactly understand what I'm supposed to do. I don't understand why I'm supposed to do this. I don't understand why we're changing things. I don't understand how this will be beneficial to the clinic, to the team, to the patient, to the client, blah, blah, blah. So there's a lack of understanding. Or they don't want to do this because they are afraid. And they might not even know that the reason they don't want to do something is actually because of fear. But you can surmise that there's some aspect of fear in this because they're the same as you are. You're the same as I am. We all have this innate fear of looking foolish, or, oh my gosh, what if I can't pull this off? Or I'm afraid my friends will think I'm odd or weird if I do this. Or I'm afraid I won't be able to do a good enough job. Or I'm afraid it will take too much time. Or I'm afraid it will add more to my already full plate. Or I'm afraid I will sacrifice my time And then the rest of it is, I'm afraid I will sacrifice my time and not be rewarded. That's the bit of the, I'm afraid of that doesn't get said very often. But a lot of times we're afraid of doing something, spending extra time, because time is precious for you, for them, for me, for everybody. It's one of our most precious elements is time. And so when you add more to their plate, the fear might be that, hey, I'll sacrifice my time for this, but then I won't get anything out of it. It won't do anything for me. I won't be rewarded or praised or recognized in some way. And so the list goes on, but you get the idea. So what can you do? What should you do? How should you handle all of these objections? And mind you, some of them will be blatantly obvious and some will be hidden within a person's actions. And I'm talking about the excuses now. So, if they give you all of those excuses, they tell you those excuses, you know that they are excuses. But also be aware that absenteeism or tardiness or even bullying can be a type of nonverbal excuse for not wanting to do something because A, they don't understand it, or B, they have some sort of fear around it. So here's what you should do. Ask them why they don't want to do it. And you'll want to ask them so you get a because answer. So you don't want to do this because, and you want them to think about why they don't want to do this. They may not realize the real reason until you have a conversation about it. So think about it this way. Last time I talked about potato soup. This time I'm going to talk about spiders. So think about it this way. Do you want someone to put a spider in your hand? Some of you might say, yeah, not a big deal. But most of us are going to say no because we're afraid of spiders. We'd immediately say, no, I don't want a spider in my hand. And then when you ask why not, can you explain to me why not? It's difficult for us to explain. So when you sit down with a staff member who isn't doing what you ask them to do, something or participate in the change, and they give you an excuse and you ask for the why, remember that they might not be able to tell you why they don't want that spider in their hand. So when they do give you feedback, be very open to it and listen. I don't want to hold a spider in my hand because they creep me out. I don't like how they have fuzzy legs, and what if they bite me and it's a black widow and now I have to deal with this bite and go to the hospital and be hospitalized for a month and I won't be able to take care of my kids, and so on and so on and so on. So you understand that this question, this why don't you want to be a part of this change, can lead to a waterfall of words and emotions as they're trying to figure out why they don't want to do something. So be kind when you hear that. Be accepting and thankful for the feedback and the fact that this person is sharing their fears with you, because it's tough. Give them empathy first and then give them clarity. The spider is not poisonous, but I understand your fear. Would you like to have a look at it in a glass jar first? Would you like to watch Melissa touch the spider first? Would it help if? And so on and so on. So the other thing is, don't expect a solution to the objection right away. The important thing is that you are giving them clarity around your changes. I need to get away from the spider analogy again and get back to the change. So you want to give them clarity around your changes. Give them clarity and give them support. And then leave and retreat and go back to the drawing board. Go back to the setup and your clarity. Can you answer all of those questions that might have just been thrown at you that you hadn't even thought about before, that didn't seem questions when you were trying to think through this change that you wanted to implement? and possibly it's creating anxiety or friction in your team that you didn't realize before. So when you have that conversation with the people who are giving you objections, it's actually perfect for you to receive feedback from them and create more clarity around your setup, around how you view the change. Because you got to remember, you're just throwing this at them. They didn't have any time to really think about it. You've had, days, weeks, months to think about it, especially if you've gone through the setup process and the delivery process, and it's just been with you all day long, even probably when you're at home and at night. So you've had lots of time to think about it, and they're just being confronted by it, kind of like when a client comes in with a dog and this huge lump on the dog, and the client says, well, it just appeared. Well, we know it didn't just appear. It had time to grow and get that big, but they just didn't notice it before. So your staff might not have noticed all of the little changes that came about before you hit them, so to speak, over the head with a big change. And now it's like, oh my gosh, they're scrambling. So take their excuses and their objections as feedback and be empathetic to it. So to summarize, excuses are really just expressions of lack of understanding or fear of failure, or sometimes fear of success, but that's more on the clinic owner side than with your staff. Your staff usually has a fear of failure. And then to handle objections, you want to ask them for feedback and the reason behind their excuses. But just be kind when you talk to them about that, when you have a conversation about those excuses. Go back to the drawing board and become really, really clear on the what, when, how, and the why of your change. So next week, I'll talk about the second to last step in creating changes without creating conflict, and I've called that watch and learn. If you have any questions, obviously you're always welcome to email me at hyoung@dblcoaching.com. You have a few seconds to write a question into the chat box right now if you have any, or you can go to LinkedIn and join Beyond Veterinary Practice Management and leave me a question in there. So that's it for today, and I will see you again next Thursday with another tidbit, which is going to be part 5 of the 6-step process. And in the meantime, have a wonderful rest of the week and a great weekend, and I'll talk to you next week.